You're listening to All Things Considered on KTXK. The summer he was 12, Noah remarks he watched a teenage boy die. So begins the first sentence of a coming-of-age story told in first person by the main character of Texarkana native Lee Sanders' book Under the Light of Fireflies. The juxtaposition here of light and dark suffuses the story of Noah, his friend Connor, and a group of miscreant boys to draw a picture of innocence, trauma, and redemption. As Sanders says, though, it's really a story of nostalgia and simpler times, all set in 1981 in Texarkana.
So I was born and raised in Texarkana. I went to Texas High School. I even graduated from East Texas State there. Moved away to Austin for a number of years, and I ended up in Fort Worth, Texas, where I live now. I have a family. But Texarkana to me is such a unique place, and it's sort of a cultural stew in a way. I mean, you got four really distinct states right there that all meet in the middle, but Texarkana itself, as we know, is a twin city. And I thought it was perfect for my book because it's a little bit sleepy. Things move a little bit slow, and in 1981, children had a lot more liberties than I think that we have today. And so, yeah, I mean, kids were free to roam and go to Spring Lake Park, or what was then known as Waterworks Lake, which is now Bringles Lake, and even just roam around. We could go down to downtown and all those kinds of things. And so I wanted to have that freedom, and I wanted to have that town feel, and, you know, my family still lives there, and it's just sort of ingrained in me. And, you know, whenever I say I'm going to Texarkana for the holidays, I always say I'm going home for Christmas. It's just the way it feels. And I just felt like it was just the perfect setting, especially for what I wanted to do. I needed him to have some freedom, and there also needed to be a big splash of notoriety for my main character when that moment arrives in the book. That's the major, you know, the inciting incident and the turning point.
Lee, tell us something about Noah and his friend Connor and their relationship, as well as other characters in the story and how they fit together.
Noah Ellis is a 12-year-old, and Noah is very, very earnest. And so his deepest desire is validation and self-worth. And being a coming-of-age novel, I think that's all children want that. That's part of the growing pain that we grow up. We want an identity. And the thing about Noah is he's already been through some severe loss. And it just makes him want to try harder, and it keeps coming up shorter and shorter. And ultimately, his desires kind of overtake him. They become obsessions. He goes into a period of self-loathing. But he's a good kid, and he has a big heart, and that leads him down the wrong path. And so, you know, being the main character of the story is about him, obviously. It's written in first person. But I think what's relatable with everybody is that loss of innocence. And the concept behind the whole novel is really based on lost innocence. But what I was thinking was, what if we lost our innocence and we couldn't remember how we lost it? And so that's what the unique idea to that, and I applied it to Noah, and he's a doer, and he's rather bold a little bit, and he's also a little bit meek. So those contrasts kind of create Noah who he is, and his name is Noah Ellis, and that, you know, harkens to the prophet Noah, who got on a boat, got off and found a new world, and then Ellis Island, where everybody left everything behind and came into a new world. And so for him, it's trying to find what was lost and find this new world. Now, some of the other characters, his relationship with Connor, I think it's kind of unique because Connor was sort of an unknown. What we hear about him early in the book is, you know, he might have been a bully. He was sort of cryptic, mysterious, a loner, and he describes himself later as just another piece of white trash. And so I think that our initial conception of him is going to be one that's negative. But as with everybody that we don't know, sometimes we learn things about him, and we learn about Connor and his relationship with Noah. And Noah gets to see somebody transform in a sense before his eyes, and he can see the good in Connor. Now, unfortunately, Noah's not going to remember Connor until the end of the book, but it's going to come at the right time. And I hope I'm not spoiling it, but it's going to come at the right time for Noah. And so with Connor, it's about learning. And so then you also have the antagonist, which is basically a treehouse club. It was across 40th Avenue in Texarkana in Glenwood. Noah lives in the park. There are multiple villains, is what they are. When we went to elementary school and all the way through junior high, you know, kids were kind of like all mixed together in a sense, and there were cliques. and this was their clique, and ultimately Noah falls in with them. And what we learn is when he falls in with them, he's just looking for validation. And so he decides that he'll do whatever it takes to be validated. And falling in with the cool crowd, he learns that he has to steal and destroy. And it's not in his character, and so he's going to have to learn from that as well.
Now, there's at least one animal character from this story, which comes from the zoo, which existed in Texarkana for a little while before it permanently closed.
There was a couple of animals. One he associated with was the seals. When I was a child, I used to go to the zoo in Texarkana. And just like Noah talks about in my novel, I loved the seals. I loved them. I would go and just watch them swim and splash around. And so that's kind of the happy side of it. And I remember when they were gone. And so I kind of put that in the book just as a reflection. And, you know, there's a little bit of pain there for me. And I think that I utilized that. And you know, the other one is my Aunt Cheryl, who's an English teacher. She's the one that actually told me that I could write, believe it or not. She inspired me. She lived in the park. And so at night, I would spend the night with her, and we would open the windows, like on a nice, cool spring evening, and we could hear the lions and the tigers roaring. We could hear the monkeys. And, you know, I decided to take that and use it, and so create a character out of the animals. And, you know, one is vicious, one's a killer, and, you know, the other one's just an innocent little seal. And there's another character, a human character, the Russian, which appears in the zoo. And that was the period of the Cold War. 1981, it was very frosty relations with Russia at the time, Soviet Union back then. And so I thought that it would be kind of cool to use that Russian aspect in the Cold War. For one thing, I want to have a little nostalgia in there. But also one thing, I wanted to sort of illuminate our prejudices against certain people. Russia was the enemy, right? But then to show that, like, even a Russian has a heart and is a human being. And so that's all of that was located in the zoo, and I just said, this is a great spot to make that happen. And because you kind of have the wild aspect of it, but then you also have a heart involved in it.
Under the Light of Fireflies, a coming-of-age novel set in Texarkana in 1981 by Texarkana native Lee Sanders, is available at the publisher's website, catalystpress.org. It's also available at Amazon and other online book retailers, including Barnes & Noble and Target. Texarkana readers will undoubtedly be familiar with many of the hometown references and landmarks mentioned in the book, which was officially released on Tuesday. For KTXK Think Radio, I'm Sabrina McCormick.